Hi everyone, Sandra here. Today I'm going to make a video talking about what I view to be the pros and cons, or the good and the bad, of living in Lake Chapala. I get so many questions that are the same questions over and over for people who are interested in this area. This video is hopefully going to answer some of those questions. Some of the things are objective, some of the things are subjective. It's more of my opinion. There's a lot that depends on your particular individual perspective, so you have to keep that in mind. Right now it is the beginning of June, and the first thing I'm going to start off with is the good. And I'm going to talk about the weather to begin with, because that's what really attracts a lot of people here. And the weather, it's referred to a lot as perfect. Like I said, a lot depends on your perspective. I love the weather here. It's very moderate, so there's not a wide swing between temperatures, so you don't get a really cold winter and you don't get a really hot summer. What it does have here are two distinct seasons, and that is the dry season and the wet season. The wet season it begins right around kind of now and runs until October-ish, November. And during that time, the rains come and make everything very lush, very green. However, the humidity isn't bad. It's because we're at a high elevation, I think. We're above 5,000 feet here. I think that keeps it very temperate. So at night it cools down, which is great for sleeping. Dave and I don't have an air conditioner. Some people do. That depends on your preference, but we find it perfectly livable without it. That being said, during the dry season, it did get kind of hot, probably in like May. Anyway, it was hot, and it was hot even at night, to the point where it was a little bit uncomfortable sleeping, but we're kind of used to it, so it's not a big deal for us. We lived in Texas without air conditioning for years, so to me, yeah, the heat here is really very minor. It's nothing. Right now it is, as I said, the beginning of June. We've noticed that the humidity has kind of kicked up right now. It's just enough that, like, I'm sitting here now and I can really just feel myself kind of sweating, that kind of sticky, sweaty feeling that you get from humidity. And I expect that is going to resolve here as the rains start to pick up, because that's what it was last year around the time that we got here. It was so comfortable. The dry season, another thing is that it's very dusty, and you will notice it. I mean, it's to the point where you're gonna see it in your dwelling. I mean, you can even kind of just feel it in the air sometimes, like it get kind of gritty feeling in your eyes. But I still say that the weather here is great. If you don't like winter and you don't like really, really intense summer heat, and you don't like really high humidity, this place doesn't have any of those things, I would say, generally speaking. Another good thing is the natural beauty and scenery of the area. So it's surrounded by, I kind of think of them as hills, but they're mountains, I guess, and they're green in the wet season. They're kind of brown in the dry season. The flowering plants here are beyond belief. There's something blooming year-round, and they have an abundance of trees that have all of these marvelous flowers on them. There's all these kind of tropical desert sort of plants. Lots and lots of bird life. You hear the birds all around me right now. And throughout the year, the kinds of birds that we have seen have varied a lot. And of course, with the big lake there's things like white pelicans, all sorts of shore birds, egrets, herons, that sort of thing. So if you love to watch birds, you will like it here. There's hummingbirds. We haven't noticed a whole lot of other wildlife. I've seen quite a few insects and also lizards. And we have seen a couple of snakes. We haven't seen any venomous kinds of snakes, just some like non-venomous water snakes down by the lake. The food is, in our opinion, much better than in the United States. I think part of that is probably due to the freshness of it. Something that Dave and I notice when we go back to the United States is that we both develop sort of chronic, I would say, gastrointestinal, irritational sorts of problems. As soon as we come down to Mexico, we're here eating the food for a couple of weeks, and all of these things that I'm talking about clear up. And food is better here. The food costs about, it depends on what you want, you know. If you eat like the locals, you're going to spend at least probably a third less than you're used to spending in the United States. The people here are very friendly, very kind. Everyone is very nice, and it feels quite welcoming. People smile at you. I mean, we have gotten, I guess, you know, there's people that kind of know us. We ride our bicycles around and we have people waving at us. See what I mean about the birds? We got a little guy over here. He just had himself a bath in the swimming pool. Oh, I love it. I just love animals and nature stuff. I think that some people have this perception, if they've never been to Mexico, they think that it's very primitive here. And while there may be areas very, like, way out in the sticks where villages are still very primitive, maybe not around here, okay? Like anywhere where there's towns and cities and stuff, it's very modern. Internet, there's cell phones, there's like malls, there's big corporate stores, especially if you go up to Guadalajara and bigger cities. Our internet here in Mexico is much better, much faster than anything we can even get in the United States where we live. So it's not like it's some sort of third world backwoods sort of deal going on here at all. Life is slower here. The people just don't seem as, I guess the word to use is uptight. People are more mellow. It's more calm. People aren't as in big of a hurry. So I really like that and appreciate that fact. I think people down here drive better than in the United States. I hear a lot of people complain about people driving in Mexico, and I think what it is they're just not used to some of the ways that people in Mexico drive. Here it is more of a dance in which you all join in and you sort of learn like what signals and the kinds of driving mean, and then, you know, you get better at it. But for someone who's not used to it, it can seem a bit overwhelming probably. People are more attentive than they are in the United States. You don't really see hardly anyone looking at their cell phone or whatever while they're driving. Occasionally you see it, but not regularly. People are more attentive. There's more going on in the road. There's people walking, there's bicycles, there's animals. And I think that by virtue of that, you just have to be more attentive to your driving. Along the lake, there are several different little towns. Each one seems to have kind of its own sort of flair and flavor. The bigger towns are Chapala, Ajijic, and Jocotepec, to me, seem to be the bigger towns. Then there are a lot of little smaller communities, and the smaller communities are a little more, I don't know, rustic kind of, and the bigger towns are not as much. Ajijic is definitely expat central, and because of that, in Ajijic there are a lot of businesses that sort of, I think, cater to that population. So you're going to find things in Ajijic specifically that you might not be able to find in any of the other little towns along the lakeshore. Dave and I go down there to visit one particular grocery store, for instance, because there we can buy certain things that we just can't find in any of the little small tiendas that are, you know, abundant in all of the other towns. Mostly, though, we prefer to stay on the west end of the lake, which the biggest town down here is Jocotepec, and we really like Jocotepec. It's kind of on the end of the lake, so it doesn't feel as like kind of cramped or squished in as does Ajijic. Ajijic just got designated as a Pueblo Magico, so they're doing a lot down there it's just to make it more beautiful, more touristy kind of, and that you have that feel down there in Ajijic more. The other towns to me seem more regular, they're not as touristy. Another good thing is that we're so close to Guadalajara that anything that you can't really find around here that you might need, there's Costco and stuff like that. We're close to the international airport in Guadalajara. There is abundant public transportation down here. I mean, you could easily live in this area and get yourself up to Guadalajara and get yourself really to anywhere in Mexico without having a car. I really like kind of the smaller town feel of this area. We have visited Guadalajara and it is a big city, and I am more of a country mouse kind of person. It is it's very populated around here, but it just has a lot more rural feel. I mean, there are open fields where people have cows and horses and things. Yeah, it just generally has a better rural kind of atmosphere. But there are like trails that go up into the hills. Dave and I went on a little hike. We did a video about it. The area has a very nice bike path and they are extending it. They're in the process of doing that now, and I expect that it's going to run from Jocotepec all the way to Chapala. The side streets is a little harder to ride your bicycle on because a lot of them are cobblestone streets, and so it's kind of bumpy. I love the abundant creativity and color and variety that Mexico offers. It's not just here on the lakeshore. I've noticed this about Mexico just about everywhere. You've got beautiful murals, people paint their houses all sorts of colors. There's just little bits of artistic flair, like all around you all the time in Mexico. I don't know what that is. It's part of the culture, and people participate in it more than in the United States, it seems. Cost of living here, some things are more expensive, like fuel for your vehicle is going to be more expensive generally than in the United States. Propane is a little bit more expensive than I anticipated. Electricity can be expensive if you do things like run an air conditioner, but if you don't, it's very inexpensive in my opinion. Things like cell phone service and internet are less expensive. Food, lots of products and commodities and stuff are less expensive, it seems. You can live down here very inexpensively, or you can go crazy and you can spend just as much or more money than you would spend living in the United States. I mean, that's really kind of on your individual preference. Dave and I live down here very inexpensively, and as I said before, we don't spend a lot on things that aren't necessary, I guess. So, you know, it all depends on what you personally want to do and how you want to budget your money. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the bad things. For me, the number one thing that I am sort of bothered by is the amount of trash that's everywhere. And I have been in places in Mexico where it is pretty clean. In general, I would say that it's much trashier here than it is in the United States in most places. I'm not blaming anyone or saying, you know, disparaging people. There's a lot of things that probably are the reason for that contribute to it. I'm not here to offer like my suggestion on how they should fix it or anything, but it's just something to note. And I don't like that. I don't like it no matter where I am in the world. I just don't like trash. I think there's too much of it. I think there's too much disposable stuff made out of plastic, especially in the world, and I think that we would be better off without it. Things are not done. here in Mexico the way they are in the United States, as far as businesses and people on schedules and getting things done, and the customer is always right sort of attitude. It's different here. There is one main road that runs along the lake, and on the west end where we're at, we have, it seems fairly, it's okay, like the traffic isn't bad. But you get down towards Ajijic, and it can be very congested down there. From our experience, the traffic always moves along. It's not like you're gonna be stuck in a traffic jam forever, but it's just something to note, you know, that the traffic is a little more congested down by that area. You do encounter people begging in Mexico, and we have seen it in this area. Where we are from, there is a big homeless problem in the bigger cities, and you do not see anything even remotely close to that here in Mexico, or at least we haven't ever seen it. But you do see people who seem like hard luck, and you'll have things happen, maybe like little kids will run up and be begging you for money. People will linger outside of businesses asking for money. That sort of thing happens. One of the bad things is the police that will pull you over or target you possibly because you do not have local license plates, and try to extort you for money. You know, maybe sometimes people really do violate some traffic rule or whatever, but I just, from personal experience and also listening to other people's experiences, it seems like it does happen that sometimes you can just get pulled over because you're being targeted and they think they can get more money from you. Dave and I have had that happen, and it is not a pleasant experience at all. You know, it's not, I don't think anybody's gonna like that, right? So, and that happens. It happens in Mexico. It's just, it's part of being here. I think in 99% of the times, it's not a dangerous situation, but it is not great. We all wish that that didn't happen. Do I think that that's a reason to not come to Mexico? For me personally, no, not at all. I don't think it's going to happen enough that it's some sort of horrible issue that you're just constantly going to be afraid of driving anywhere or doing anything. That's not how I feel about it, but I also have an awareness of it, and when Dave and I see police, we're always very hyper aware, I guess, now of that potential. And so we try to very much follow the traffic rules, because we know that even though everyone around us might not be, the fact that we have plates that are not Mexican plates may put us at risk, greater risk of being pulled over for something. Another thing that could be construed as bad for some people is the infrastructure here is kind of more diverse. Like, you've got some that's really great, and then you've got some that is just kind of crazy. Like the sidewalks, for instance. You could have holes, you could have like really rough surfaces. The buildings, there doesn't seem to be a lot of code, you know what I mean? You're gonna get some pretty rough kinds of infrastructure sometimes. Things just aren't done in the same way as in the United States. You could have like $1 million mansion, for instance, being built right next to somebody's like tiny little block house that has no windows. Mosquitoes in the wet season. The mosquitoes down here do have dengue fever, and I had it, and it is not fun at all. And so yeah, that's a definite negative. But is it something that I would not let me not live here? No, obviously not. It's just something to be aware of. Protect yourself as best you can. Not speaking conversational Spanish to me is a definite bad thing about living here, because I wish that I did speak it better, and I am trying to learn it more, and I have been making progress, but gosh, y'all, it's harder than I imagined it would be to learn another language. I just need to spend more and more time on it. That's just basically it, and that is harder to do. You know, that's easier said than done, I guess. I think that you should know a little bit of basic Spanish especially like your numbers. Get your numbers down because you're going to be dealing with money, and it's just so much easier and helpful to know that. If you don't, you know what, they'll write it down. They'll write the numbers down. People are very accommodating, but even so, I just think that you ought to take it upon yourself to learn it, you know, learn some Spanish. Public bathrooms are not as common in Mexico. Most of the time, if there is a bathroom, they want you to pay like 5 pesos or something, and then you may or may not get toilet paper. I suggest carrying toilet paper with you when you go out and about if you think you might need to visit a bathroom. Yeah, like you can go to the grocery store that we go to, for instance. One time I went there and I had drank some coffee and I really had to go. And I asked them if I could use their bathroom and they wouldn't let me. You know, there's a lot of businesses, they just won't let you use their bathroom. It's not a public bathroom. They may have one, but they're not going to let you use it. You don't always see like the pristineness that you know that you have in stores in the United States, like food stores and stuff. And some people are gonna have a real problem with that. Like I watched a lady one time, the way they display like the meat and stuff, even in some of the bigger grocery stores, they'll just have like this tub full of raw chicken just sitting there. You know, people will be like, oh my God, you know, and maybe sometimes there's flies. The grocery store we go to, I mean, there's no doors on the place. It's just wide open on the front. So on certain days when it's prime for that, we've gone in there and there'd just be flies, you know, flying around. You know, if you go to some of the bigger corporate stores, like for instance, the Soriana, I mean, they've got doors and they keep it closed and you're not going to encounter that as much. But in the smaller stores and stuff, a lot of times it's just wide open. Dave and I eat the food down here. We buy stuff at little stores and we've never been sick from eating. So, you know, it's all in, a lot of that's in your mind, honestly. Noise. Mexico is a noisy place. People in Mexico play their music at such high volume that the speakers, I don't even know how they think that it sounds good sometimes. It'll just be vibrating and rattling, but that is so common. If you want peace and quiet, you're gonna have to seek that. You're gonna have to live in the country somewhere, or maybe in a, like, you know, gated community. We're in a gated community and it's much quieter. Loud music and stuff like that. I'm glad that we do live in a gated place where we don't really have that going on as much around us. People rev their cars up. I mean, shooting fireworks off, the loud exploding kind. That's Mexico. All right, so people then ask a lot, would you live here for like full time all the time? Yes, I could live in Mexico and live here for the rest of my life and it would be no problem. Am I going to do that? Maybe not, because I like moving around. Dave and I are at a stage right now in our show. That's our lifestyle. We're sort of semi-nomadic. So the next place for us may be somewhere else in Mexico. I think this is a wonderful area. This is a wonderful place to live, and I would definitely come back here again. So I guess that's it, y'all. That's what I have to say about the Lake Chapala area. I also am going to be making a separate video talking about specifics of how, exactly what we did when we came down here to find housing. It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard at all. It just, everything fell into place so easily. I don't know if that's going to be your experience, but it was ours. I've covered a lot here. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down below, and I thank you very much for watching. Bye, y'all.